Hey there, I'm your host, Tisha Michelle, and welcome to #Certified, where you will leave enlightened, empowered, and inspired to live a life of authenticity. Let's go. Welcome back to #Certified. I'm your host, Tisha Michelle. At some point in our lives, we all experience grief. But what is grief? I believe grief is having an idea of something and then having that idea taken away. Whether it's a job you thought you'd retire from, but then was laid off, or a house you thought you'd raise your children in, but then it was foreclosed. Or maybe a relationship you thought the two of you would grow old together, but to then separate. Then there's grief from the death of a loved one. I lost my dad first, then my grandmother, and most recently my best friend. The pain, I can say, at times has been unexplainable and even core-rocking. Then there's the grief from having to bury your child. Now, I haven't experienced that personally, but as a parent, I can only think and believe that that pain is something that's just unimaginable. My oldest son, Michael, who's 19 now, lost his best friend, Frank, at the age of 16. Today's episode is very near and dear to me as I have a conversation with a courageous father, the father of Frank, who in the midst of grieving turned it into a mission to educate and help protect other children, maybe even your child. So join me in the conversation with Woolwine of thefrankiechallenge.com. All right, so I created the #Certified podcast so I can enlighten people, empower, and inspire them. So personally, I believe that experience is our greatest teacher. So I definitely wanted to start off by saying I really, really, really appreciate you making time to not only have a conversation with me, but share your story, share your experience, give information on the Frankie Challenge to not only myself, but also to my listeners. So I definitely want to say thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay. So before we get into what the Frankie Challenge is, I think it's important to give our listeners some context. So if it's okay with you, I definitely want to take it back and just tell who is Frankie?
Well, Frankie obviously was my son, and he was a very good kid. Ever since childhood, he was very outgoing, very friendly, very happy. People loved him. He never met a stranger. Even from the age of 4, he was always very animated, smiling, laughing. Really didn't have too many bad times with him as a kid. He was a good athlete. He got along with family. He loved hanging out with his grandparents. He loved hanging out with his cousins. He was, pretty normal kid throughout his childhood. The one thing that did happen to him is he lost his mother at the age of 6, which was very tough on him and his little brother. But the one thing that I always remember about Frankie was the morning I had to tell them that their mother had passed away and she had died of brain cancer. So we kind of knew what was happening. She was very sick for about 6 weeks. But at the end of the day, when I had to tell them, Frankie looked at me and he looked at his brother. And he pointed to his heart and he said, no matter what, Mom will always be here. So I always have remembered that and always thought of him from that, that presence that he had to, just be thoughtful to say that. So he was a special kid.
I mean, definitely to be so young and to be able to articulate that just shows how much of a powerful being that he is. And as well as I personally know the smile always having a smile on his face,
Right.
and I just thought that was just, just amazing. Like this kid is happy, and this is just, it's great. He's not wearing anything on it. He's just always smiling. So I definitely appreciate that story, hearing of like what it is that he said when he, found out about his mom. I think that's amazing.
No, absolutely. And he, like you said, he always had a smile on his face. The one thing that I also admired about Frank was he grew at a pretty quick pace. So he was a pretty big kid in sixth grade. And he always was protective of the littler, smaller boys. I mean, he was famous for one of our neighbors that had disabilities. The kids would pick on him in the neighborhood, and Frank would take up for him every time and basically just tell the kids that, you're not going to mess with this kid,
Nice.
or unless you mess with him. So he was always that way. He was always smiling, very friendly, always. I mean, loved his sisters, and he picked on his brother all the time as a kid, which another real good story from his childhood is every single Saturday morning, the boys had rooms down in the basement, and we'd be up, my wife and I would be up and having coffee. And exactly, it was almost like clockwork, about 8 o'clock, because Frank did not sleep in. And most kids, teenagers slept in. He didn't sleep in. He got up early. So you just hear his brother screaming, "Dad, Dad, get him out of here." And I'd say, he'd call me on his cell phone from the basement. This is Robert. "Dad, you got to get him out of here." So I'd get up. It was a routine every Saturday. I'd get up. I'd go down. I'd say, "Frank, get off of him." And then Frank would say, "Okay, Dad." And then I'd come back upstairs, and Frank would come up just giggling, just laughing. So that was always
mission accomplished.
Absolutely. And his brother, I mean, even today we talk about that all the time, because he has a little stepbrother, and he picks on him the same way Frank picked on him. And he thinks it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but that's one thing I always admired about Frank too. He was really just a good big brother, not only to his brother, but also to his stepsisters and his stepbrother. So he had a heart of gold, no doubt.
Absolutely. And I mean, just for like the listeners, him and my oldest son, were our best friends. And it's so funny you brought up about him being an athlete. And I think I shared this with you. I'm not sure if not, but it was a camp that they were going to. And I took him, I took Frank with me, to the camp.
Right.
And I think it was you who sent me like the paperwork, and we were kind of doing like through the emails back and forth. So I was making sure he was getting all like straight. So Michael and all of them had went inside already, but he was still out there. So I was going through and getting him all signed up and stuff. And then we just was like quick conversation. And then he said something about his number, and he was like 33. And I was like, oh, wait, you're Bruiser. And he was like, what? And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you're Bruiser. I was like, my cousin nicknamed you Bruiser. And he had no clue. And it was for, he would just be laying people out on the field, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like every time he would be up, he would just be laying them out like in the football game. So my cousin, who went to all of their games and knew everything about everyone, was like, oh, that's Bruiser. Oh, Bruiser this, Bruiser that. And this is so funny because it's that whole time I didn't even really make the connection of, all I know is number 33. Because when it's like on the football field, I just know them like, oh, who, number 23? Oh, number 24. Never say anyone's actual like name. So then when we were going through all that, I was like, oh, you're Bruiser. And then his smile was so big because of this nickname that, that he didn't even know that he had. So I thought that was just pretty cool. I was like, oh, I'm standing next to Bruiser. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
He loved 33, no doubt. He loved that number. And obviously, if you watched his athletic I guess, short career, he really started getting very good in ninth grade. And then as a sophomore, he was poised as a junior to be very good on the team. But you laugh about his smile. He had one of the most incredible smiles I think I've ever seen. He would smile all the time. The only time he didn't smile, and I loved looking at these pictures, was when he got braces. All the family photos, he'd smile, but he'd never show his teeth. Never. I don't think the only picture, I don't think there is a picture of him smiling with his braces. There might be one with his grandfather hanging out, but that's it. He would never smile. He used to get me so mad.
He was hiding them braces. He wasn't embracing them.
Yeah, and the day he got out of his braces, that's one of my favorite photos. If you come to our house, we have it blown up. He sent a picture of his grandmother that actually at the time lived in San Francisco. That was his mom's mother. And he sent a picture of his and just he took a selfie of a huge broad smile. And his teeth were perfect white. And we have that blown up. Actually, it's probably in 3 places in the house, but we have a real big one blown up in our den. So that really kind of defined Frank's personality and just the type of kid he was. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely like appreciate that, and especially with teenagers for to hear so many people say, I remember his smile. I remember his smile. Like that says a lot about a person.
No,
and it says so much about a person.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I run into people all the time, and I get text from some of the parents, probably 10 times a year, that just say, "Gosh, I'm just thinking about his smile." Whenever they're down or they're their kids and having issues or whatever, they just send a thing. They'll send me a note and just say, "I just want you to know that I'm thinking about Frankie's smile. It's bringing me back." So,
how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, for me, it's it just makes me feel good. I think about him all the time. Anytime I see any sports or any kids, and I try to stay in touch with his friends, which I think I've done a pretty good job of, and they're good about staying in touch with me too. It just makes me feel good. I mean, it fills my heart to know that they cared about him and that he was a good kid. That's the key.
Yeah,
he really was a good kid. He made a huge mistake, and I'm sure if he was standing here today, he would tell you that, it was a huge mistake. And, it's one of those things that could have happened to anybody, but at the end of the day, it happened to him. So, that's, the smile does make me feel good though.
Good. The mistake,
yes,
that he made. And of course, I personally know about that mistake. Are you comfortable with actually sharing what,
oh no,
what happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I share it because, later on we'll talk about the FrankieChallenge.com and why that exists.
Absolutely.
But, Frank, he was getting ready for football. He had just gotten cleared to play. They had just started summer practice. He was fired up. My last, and I do think about this every day, my last vision of him was we were going on vacation. The family was going on vacation. He had summer practice. I didn't feel real comfortable about leaving him home, but he was staying with my mother, his grandmother, and he didn't have his driver's license, so he wasn't driving at the time. So it was going to be a little bit of a hassle for my mother to have to get him to and from practice, or friends would get him to and from practice because my mother lived outside the Freeman district. But so we went on vacation. He stayed. But my last vision is I dropped him off All the athletes at Freeman had to sign, all the football players had to sign a pledge that they wouldn't drink or do drugs. They'd be committed to the team during the season. And Frank had not signed his. So the coach kept sending me a note saying, hey, he hadn't signed it. He hadn't signed it. So the night before, he signed it, and he was getting out of the car, and he left it sitting in the front seat. And I said, Frank, don't forget your pledge. And he goes, oh, okay. So he grabbed the pledge, and he walked away. And that's my vision of him, which I'll keep for the rest of my life. I mean, he had he was 6'2", 195, and you could just see the V. I mean, he had a V as a body. And so I saw him from the back as he was walking away with the pledge in his hand to go to practice. And then we went on vacation. That night, I was down on vacation. My wife at the time was taking one of the kids to camp, so she was not with us. I had all the other kids with me down in South Carolina. And Frank called me and said, hey, can I spend the night at a friend's house? And I'm like, Frank, I don't think that's a good idea. And he said, well, Dad, it's my last night. I mean, I'm start practice on Monday, and this is Saturday night, and I really want to, make it happen. Actually, it was Friday night, if I'm right. It was a Friday night, and so I said, okay, and I know Tisha, I think that he said he was spending the night at Michael's house.
And then Michael told me he was staying at your house.
Right. And it's probably one of the few times I didn't check, just to double check. Yep. But then again, at the end of the day, what happened. And I think they apparently had a party here at our house that day. We had a 21-year-old watching our house. It was our daughter's boyfriend. And we'd give him strict instructions that, don't let anybody in the house. Frank's not supposed to be in the house. Apparently he let them have a party. They had a party. And then what really gets me from a, thinking back standpoint is they went to 2 different parties after that and Ubered to both of them. I have the Uber bills. He Ubered on my account to both of them. And then they came back here, and I believe Michael was with him. They came back here, and then for some reason, he stayed up. Everybody went to bed. And then he got a text from a girl at about 1:30 and said, hey, come on over. And he decides he's going to grab the keys of the car and drive over there. The guy who was here tried to stop him. Frank was a big kid. Tried to stop him, couldn't stop him. Matter of fact, Frank took his sister's car and hit the other kid's car just getting out of the driveway, drove through the bushes. So, and I'm in South Carolina. I get woken up at 1:45 in the morning with my daughter crying and saying, Roy, you got to get on the phone. It's Oz, who's her boyfriend. And you need to talk to him. Frank's been in a car accident. So I'm like, okay. I'm half asleep. I get up, I get on the phone, and this kid is crying, saying, I can't wake him up. I can't get him up. I'm at the scene. He's in the car. I can't get him to wake up. And I said, where are the police? He goes, they're not here yet. And I said, well, and then I could hear the police in the background. So I said, look, of course I'm freaking out, but I'm not freaking out. I'm trying to keep control. And I basically said, look, put the phone, as soon as a policeman gets there, put the phone in the policeman's hand. And so that happened. So I get a police officer on the phone. He says, Mr. Woolwine, understand that you think this is your son. I can't verify that. The kids here say it's your son, but I can't verify that. But I will tell you that the individual in this car is deceased. So, a lot of emotions go through your mind at that point. But I mean, at the same time, it wasn't verified. But I kind of knew. And of course, she was all upset. The daughter was all upset. The boyfriend was all upset. And, so I talked to the police officer for a few more minutes. And he said, look, let me figure out what's going on and I'll call you back. So I hung up. I was at the vacation house with my in-law, my wife's brothers and wives and her parents. So it's 2 a.m. So we woke up one of the sister-in-laws, and she came out, and she's like a corporate public relations person so she came out and said, look, she actually kept her cool. And then the police officer called me back and said, look, any way you can get somebody to come identify the body? I said, okay, let me call my brother and sister who both live in Richmond. Both of them were out of town. So I ended up calling my boss, and I actually called one of Frank's friend's dads who didn't he didn't answer the phone. And then my boss actually answered the phone at 2 a.m. He said, hey, what's going on? I thought you were on vacation. I said, look, I need a favor. And he said, yeah, I've had a few cocktails, but my son is here. I'll wake him up. He's 19. We'll go over there. So he called me back and said, it's Frank. So, from that point on, it was, what do you do? So I called my wife, who was in a whole nother state, woke her up, told her about it. And then we, as a family, next morning we got up. I had to tell Robert, and we drove back to Richmond. And we got back here, and when I arrived, there were friends already on our porch, And so, from that point on, you just dread that phone call, and then I was like, I've got to be strong, and so I basically got into control mode and just, set the tone and, to help other people because everybody was hurting. All his friends came over. They did a very nice vigil here at the house. I don't know if you made it to that.
Yeah.
It was very nice. That was very touching. Matter of fact, for the vigil, the police officers came in Henrico County, came to our door that day. And it turned out the police officer that was at the scene was one of my sister's classmates in high school. So He was very nice, very, compassionate. But they came to the house that day and they said, hey, we hear there's going to be a big vigil here tonight. I knew nothing about it. I mean, nobody had said anything to me about it. And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. They're going to shut it down. And they said, we're going to have extra police officers to help park, so they, Henrico County was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they were great. They really were. Because how in those situations, I could see them saying, hey, it's a hazard to the neighborhood, whatever. But no, they stepped up and said, look, we're going to have extra cops here. We'll make sure that people can park correctly and we'll keep everybody safe. So, and then they did a very, very nice visual. And then the celebration of life was huge. I mean,
oh my gosh, was it?
The whole church was packed. I think people were outside.
They were.
It was
easily over 1,000 people.
Yeah, I think the church told me they fit 1,200, and I know they were busting at the seams. So
yeah,
it was around 1,200, I think, that showed up. But it was from everybody. And the one thing that I'm very proud of was there was 9 different schools represented. So that shows you that he had friends across the board, across all the schools. So he was very friendly. I had 2 kids from one of their rival high schools that played football against him come up to me during the vigil and say, "Hey, Mr. Woolwine, we're such and such. I know you don't know us." And we actually never talked to Frank. However, we appreciated competing against him.
Mm.
And they didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to. Yeah, that's deep.
No.
I remember sitting at the service and, full of, tears for all different reasons and looking around and it's like, wow. Like just looking around in there again, it says a lot about him
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how much of an impact he made and how powerful he is. It was like a concert, when people sell out concert and it's like this, wow. And I just kept looking around and, I'm crying, I'm sad, and like I said, for many different reasons, and it's pulling all these different emotions. And at the same time, I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, this is beautiful. Like, this is like what life is actually about,
No.
He passed away, and look at all these people here because he meant something to them.
Yeah, it's such a young age.
At a young age, I said, this is wow.
Yeah, and I should
Wow.
say, Frank and I went through some trials and some tribulations when he was at the age of 15 that were tough. I mean, very tough, but we really had bonded probably since March of that year, and he died in August. We really had bonded and became a family where he was, participating in family stuff and just very outgoing. So that night, just for the record, he had a 1.9 alcohol level, which is,
what
almost,
does that actually mean?
that's almost
Like
triple. It's 2.5 times the alcohol that's allowed. So he was definitely shouldn't have been driving. He was going 70 miles an hour and a 35 miles an hour. So obviously, the message to the kids is you're all brave when you've been drinking, but at the end of the day, you can't be stupid.
Absolutely.
So, he made a stupid mistake. But with that, if you want to look at the positive side of it, as a family, we dealt with probably 3 or 4 days of people coming in and out of the house. Everybody brings food, we just, and we had people, we just opened our doors to everybody. And I had friends from high school that flew in from all over the country. I went to VMI. I had VMI buddies come in from all over the country just to be there and be there for me. I tell this all the time. I'd get up in the mornings, which is the toughest. The mornings were the toughest.
I was going to ask you, how do you get up? How do you get out of bed?
You cry a little bit and then you get out of bed because you got to put a foot in front of the other. I mean, you got to. I mean, especially, when you have family. I'm not saying you don't grieve, but at the end of the day, you got to be there for the other kids and for, my wife and my brothers and sisters and my mom. My dad had passed away, but, so you get up in the morning. I mean, you just get up. And I would walk out at 7 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. And I'd be up since 5, but I wouldn't get out of bed till 7. And I'd walk out and there would be buddies sitting on my porch or my deck, and they would not say anything. They'd say, "Hey, we're here for you. You want to go to breakfast? We'll go to breakfast. If you don't, we're just going to sit here. If you want to talk to us, that's fine. But we're just going to be here."
How beautiful.
So that meant a lot.
Yeah.
And it gives you strength. I mean, strength through others. And everybody, the message I'd tell everybody is everybody wants to help. And you talk about the food. I mean, we had more food. We could have fed, 2 neighborhoods. But at the end of the day, you don't tell people not to bring that stuff. And the main reason is it makes them feel better to bring it. And we realized that. So we were very open. If anybody wanted to do anything for me, I basically said, sure. You know, if it's what you need to do, I'm there, you know. So that leads me to the Frankie Challenge.
Yes.
So right after Frank died, after the funeral, you know, we've got, so it's my wife and I now, 5 kids, 3 stepdaughters, a stepson, and then my son, Robert. We decided a couple friends offered us their beach house. So we said, you know what? There was 2 different beach houses. We took them up on both of them. And we went down and we stayed a few days at one house, came back, left 2 days later to another house. And we just went as a family and we relaxed. And while I was sitting on the beach, I said to Emily, I said, you know, I got to do something. You know, I gotta do something to fill my heart. And so we thought about what could we do. I said, I think I need to talk to kids, and not from a lecturing standpoint, but from a, hey, here's Frankie's story. It could have happened to any of you guys sitting here in this audience. Please learn from it and think just for a second before you make any big decisions, because they do matter. And we all know that kids at that age are not wired mentally to handle some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, if they could just think about Frank for 1 second, it might change them. It might change. They might Uber. They may not get in a car. They may not drink excessively. They might not take that next beer bong, you know, that type of, I decided I needed to create that, and I needed to get out and share the story, because every time I share the story, my heart fills. It's kind of selfish. I tell people that all the time. It's almost selfish on my part, because
it's beautiful selfish. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps people, but at the end of the day, it really helps me. So we created
You heal by healing others, though.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope we have that impact. And so basically last year, it took me a year. Last year, I got it together, and I created the FrankieChallenge.com, which is a website. It has some of my videos where I've gone around and spoken to schools and high school students, and we videoed it, and it's on the video. I did a video for Henrico County where kids, when they get their license, they actually watch this video.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can go on the website and see it. I've never seen it. And the reason I never watched it, the judge came here. We did all the interviews at the house, but I never watched it because there's the actual crash scene. And I've never seen pictures from the crash scene. One of my buddies who's a police officer, I called him the day after Frank had passed. Well, he was Frank's godfather. And he found out about it. And I said, look, I want you to take me over to see the car. And he said, no, you know, you don't want to see it. You know, so I said, okay. So I've never seen that video, which is pretty wild because it is on the website and it is a cornerstone of our website. But I also did a video for AAA for the Southeast region.
It's in that.
You know, so that one's on the website. But so at the end of the day, the Frankie Challenge was built, one, and not just for me to speak, but to try to reach kids. So what we've done now is we had a big strategic meeting. We have a great board, very diverse board, with different talents. And so we actually had a big strategic meeting in April. And we decided our goal is to reach 1 million kids, or 1 million people, which could be parents.
Yes.
And we now have found a way to measure that. And at the same time, we have created what's called our junior board, where we have Frankie's peers are going to be on the junior board. We've kind of set the junior board. We haven't had our first meeting, but we will in the next month. And then they will bond together and then build the junior board out. But what they'll do is they represent different colleges, and they will go out and they will spread the word about Frankie's story. And they will also raise money through designated driver nights. So say they're in it's a sorority, they will set up a night where they drive for another sorority.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So, but the message is, it's not all about the fundraising. It's about the message to the other kids that, hey, this happened. We knew Frank, and it could happen to any of us. So let's be smart about it. And I don't tell, the one thing that when I speak, I don't tell kids not to drink. I'd love for them not to drink, and I do say that, but I don't tell them not to, because I know, the history of the world is these kids are going to drink. And I'd love for them not to, but at the end of the day, I have a realization that they're gonna. All I ask them to do is think, and to put a plan in place before they go drinking, that they know friendships, who's driving, are they Ubering, and there's no vehicles involved. So the Frankie Challenge has really taken off. We just hired an executive director, so I don't have to run it. I have my own job. So now I can just do the speaking. I have spoke throughout the Southeast, and I will be picking up that pace come this fall around the not prom, but the homecomings. Is one of the times we target, and we target prom in the spring. It's a great organization. It's thefrankiechallenge.com. And we just had a big golf tournament. And then we'll have a big benefit concert in the fall. So
that's nice. I love how you said, the mission is to reach, 1 million kids. And then you said 1 million people, because parents as well. And I think it's definitely important to parents to hear the story, so we can all play our part. And if we want to take it back to a little bit ago when you mentioned about, Frank saying to you that he was going to stay at a friend's house, which happened to be my son's house. And then my son said the opposite, that he was staying at yours. So they had their own little thing going on. And yes, it could have still happened. But as a parent, we can play a little better role as well, too. Like once I found that out, I said, oh my, I didn't even think to check. It's the same friends. It's all the time. It's like, parents cool. I know them. It's cool. But it took 2 seconds for me to check,
Oh, I know.
And that just quick 2 seconds, phone call, text message, just 2 seconds. But I also like how you said, we're going to be realistic. This is 2019. These kids are going to drink, so instead of, this is my personal belief, instead of just drumming it down to our children, don't drink, don't drink, don't drink. Like, let's weave in another message of, like you said, think first. Uber, do this. We're not giving you permission because you're doing it anyway, but it's more so of also educate them. Be a little smart. Think. Take an Uber. It's nothing to take an Uber. If you don't have the money, ask me. I'd much rather cash app you $20, for whatever, and you use it for an Uber. So I think it's just it's important too, just as parents to, hear the Frankie story.
No, I totally agree.
I
will tell you that I do, I've actually thought about writing a book, and titling it the Regrets of a Father. And one of the biggest things, after this all happened, obviously I was beating myself up on, why did I leave him here? Why didn't I stay? Why did I not check with you? if they were spending like simple text, like you said, takes 2 seconds. Why did I not do that? And I'll regret that, for the rest of my life. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to let it define me.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, and we are reaching out to PTAs, and we are reaching out to talk to parent groups, and they can. I'm an open book. That's one thing that I have no problem with telling the story. I've heard all kind of stuff about why wasn't he here? Why did they leave town? And I'm like, be careful who you judge.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, nobody judges me more than I judge myself. And I do think about that. And that is for me, that is one of the toughest things that I deal with every day. But at the same time, I look at my son, Robert, and I see how happy he is. And I can only hope he's not, we talk a lot more than Frank and I spoke. But, that's what makes me tick. That's what gets me up in the morning, is knowing that Robert, is 16, driving, and that I think he is living a good life. And here's a kid that lost his mother and his brother. So that's really that, and the other family, my wife and my stepkids, that's really what drives me, so.
I think that's so important, and I'm glad you touched on that. From hearing like other stories, and like people that I know, and people like they share other people's story, is that we get so lost in like the person who passed away that they sometimes forget about the current children. So I do love how you definitely acknowledge, you said like the relationship, like y'all conversate a lot more, and you have to continue to push on for him as well as the other children.
No, and I will say this is one thing that has stuck with me. One of my friends who was at my wife's funeral that I grew up with and good buddies, and then he was at Frank's funeral, and he said to me, he said, dude, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you can get up in the morning. I said, you know what? You get out of bed, you put one foot on the floor, you put the other foot on the floor, and guess what? You're up. And that's the easiest way to define it. You got to get up, especially for the other people. So, and myself.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely. What do you believe your greatest lesson has been?
Lesson for parents, for kids, or for me?
No, just like for yourself, with this whole, situation, like the whole thing.
Well, one is, be true to yourself. You don't have to be your kid's friend. But you also have a responsibility to, do the simple things like check up on them, even if they yell and scream at you and, tell you, you're demanding, whatever they say. But at the end of the day, they're kids, and we're not here to be their friends. We're here to be their parents. And that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life. So that's the biggest lesson for me, is I should have been more of a parent than trying to make Frank happy. And in defense, we'd gone through some tough times and we were having good times. So I wasn't as stringent on him as I normally would have been. So.
Yeah, I think as a parent, though, it's definitely hard to find that balance,
Oh, absolutely.
So definitely, it's normal. I didn't do that either. In that case, like with Michael, I just gave him the benefit of the doubt, because it's like, oh, do you want to let him know that you trust them? You want to give him this, you want to get it, and you battle between that versus like, you know what, who cares? Who cares if you think that I don't trust you because I want to just make sure to ease my mind, and that's just like how that, like that is. And when I found out, what happened with Frank. I was so confused. I was calling Michael and he wasn't answering because I said, Michael spent the night over there.
Yeah.
How do I not know? And I'm hearing this from one of, their other close friends' mom. And I was so confused. So I was the one that actually told Michael.
Yeah, because I think he was downstairs at the time.
Yeah, and it was, I went into panic mode. I didn't know what was going on. I even think, and I think I even yelled at Michael. I was like, "You better tell me the truth. I need to know what happened. What is going on?" Because I was scared. I
Right.
had no idea what was going on. I said, "What do you mean this is you were there, you spent the night? Like, why aren't you like?" It was so confusing, for me as well. And I think back to then too, like, wow, he just like I just told him he lost his best friend, and I'm like yelling at him, because I didn't know what was going on. Like, I just thought that this parent had it wrong, and I just couldn't make like any sense of it. And me and him did not talk about it until sometime, I think it was either early this year or maybe it was late last year. It hasn't been, it was just maybe 6 months ago when we were driving back from somewhere, and he was just like, yeah, now I'm ready to like talk about it. I hear things he put in his music, and that's how I seen how felt how much he was hurting, and how even more that Frank meant to him. He said, "Oh, he's not my friend, that's my brother," is what he says. And we just recently had like a conversation just about that whole Nate, and I got to tell him, I freaked out then, because as a parent I couldn't even imagine what you went through and what you're currently going through. Just recently lost my best friend, but I never lost a child. So I definitely want to say that you are powerful yourself, and it takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to not only get up in the morning for yourself and your family, but to turn grief into a mission of education for other parents and other children. And if you can just save one other child, which I know that you'll save many, I think that that's amazing. And definitely like grateful for you and like what it is that you're doing and putting out to the world, for sure.
Well, thanks. Like I said, it's actually pretty selfish, but it does fill my heart. That's all I can really say. It does fill my heart. So.
And that's definitely that's good as well. I don't look at it as selfish at all. Fill your heart, but you're filling others too. And I can tell you, when it comes to grief, there's not a one size fits all
Nope.
at all. And I want a lot of people, well, people that are listening to this, to know that it is not a one size fits all. You do whatever it is, and you try as many things as possible that's going to help you. And like for you, like you say, like, okay, well, it's selfish, but this is what's helping you, with filling your heart. You're healing by helping other people heal. And there's nothing is like wrong with that. Um, Even with that being said, what there isn't a one size fits all. Like, what would be a piece of advice like you would give someone who, lost a child, lost a loved one, that just feels just stuck, like they just
Well,
can't
I,
move?
I'd tell them I'd tell them first to let your emotions out, share it. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with talking to people about it, but get it out. Get it right out in front of you. It does get better with time. It'll never go away, but if you talk about it and you face it and you get it out there in the front, you put your hand. One of the drills is you put your hand in front of your face. You say you can see it, and start moving your hand back, and it gets smaller. And that's pretty much life. I mean, everybody grieves differently. That's one thing
Yeah.
I've realized. I've gotten so many calls over the 3 years. Hey, one of my best friends lost his son, or lost her son or her daughter. Can you talk to him? I'm like, absolutely. But
Mm.
but make no mistake, I'm not going to push myself on them. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I've been there. And you got to want to talk about it. You just got to. in my opinion. You just got to let it out. You can't let it sit inside you, because grief can eat you alive. So, and I do think,
Absolutely.
if you're not grieving death, you're not living life. It's not fair to the individual that died. I totally believe that. So,
Yeah.
that's just my thoughts.
I can definitely agree with you of, releasing those emotions. I tell people when I'm working with clients in different situations, I said, they're your emotions, they're your feelings, own them, let them out, because if you don't let them out, they have nowhere to go, and they turn into anxiety, they turn into depression,
Absolutely.
they turn into a heart attack, they turn into stroke. They have to manifest and go somewhere. So release them, let them out, and knowing that it's okay. It's absolutely okay. So I definitely agree with you on that. So how can we support you?
Well, one, you can donate on the website, and where the money goes, we did hire executive director. So that's really the only admin money. We have some marketing money that's spent on marketing, but at the end of the day, we really spend our money on stuff that we feel will get in front of kids. So we have bracelets, we have keychains, we have T-shirts, we have, we had a golf tournament, we have golf shirts. We're really trying to get the FW, which is the logo, out there where people will recognize it and understand it. So, and then talk to your high schools. If you have a kid in high school, talk to the PTA and say, hey, why isn't Roy speaking? Or, have you gotten in touch with this organization? That type of thing. We are going to put a big marketing campaign out for the city of Richmond and the areas around it. But I have spoken, in the Southeast at several different states. So we're really going to make a big push now with now we have an executive director. So if you can support us in any way, is talk to your high school or talk to middle school. I'll talk to middle schools. I'll talk to PTAs. I'll talk to parents. I'll go to the classroom. I'll do whatever I can.
Absolutely. And I will make sure it's the frankiechallenge.com, but I'll make sure that it's in the show's notes as well. So it'll be easy for the listeners to also find it and go there and
recommend
and
them to go watch the video, the DMV video, which is the last video on there.
Okay. For sure. But thank you again for taking time. I know that it was, painful to have to, share that experience and relive it, but I do appreciate it. And I know that it's going to help so many people to hear the story, but also to feel your strength, that will help them be able to put that foot forward, to be able to get out of bed, to be able to share the story, so I definitely appreciate that. And as always, I'm always over here thinking about you guys and sending you healing energy. And I'll say something to Michael. I'll say like, have you talked to Mr. Woolwine? Or he'll come and he'll say, he'll text me. He'll say, I'm not eating at home. I'm going over to Frank's for dinner. And I appreciate that so much. When you do that and you invite them over for dinner.
Yeah, I try to do that every so often. Michael texted me the other day, and I think we're going to try to get together. I don't know when he's going back to school, but worst case, we'll have another big thing over the holidays. So. Yeah,
I know he'd love that, and he'd appreciate that as well. And I appreciate that too.
No problem. So. Well, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to #certified. If anything resonated with you, I would love to continue the conversation. You can follow me on Instagram at @itistisha. And if you want to be a part of the #certified tribe, you can join my Facebook group by going to the search tab and putting in #certified. My website is conversationswithtisha.com. As always, have a great one on purpose. Love you.